Big night for the Big 12 on Friday night. Big in that 3 of the 4 teams on the field play in the Big 12. Not so big in terms of impact on the landscape of college football because the Big 12 carries some dubious distinctions already this season. Just entering week 3 in the Big 12 has already probably distinguished itself in some ways as the worst conference in college football. I'm not going to say that it is worse than the ACC right now, but it's going to be probably quite a race. And more importantly, for the teams of Kansas State, Kansas, and Arizona, some things to talk about concerning their futures and their prospects of competing in the conference and beyond. Welcome into the Voice of College Football on a Friday night, week 3. 2 games on the field. We will get to those results and, of course, those storylines as well. Before we take your calls, we remind you that Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App are the most effective way to contribute to the Voice of College Football. Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Just follow the instructions in the description section of all the videos, including this one. It's down on the ticker as well. We will be here all day on Saturday, of course, with instant analysis and also the post-game call-in show Saturday night. Got to wrap up your college football Saturday with the Voice of College Football. Give me a call on Saturday night. We have left the link in the chat for a Friday night as well. Before we take our first call, this distinction for the Big 12, there's a few of them here. And if you are not following us on X, formerly Twitter, if you're not following us on X, you should. Excellent analysis right there, engagement with all of you, stats and ratings and rankings from the Voice of College Football. This is the relaunched official account for the Voice of College Football that was relaunched on July 1st. And so I got to say, I came up with this gem right here. So UNLV takes out Kansas 23-20. The group of 5 in the FCS are now just 3-78 versus the Power 5. That does not compare favorably to past seasons where the group of 5 has been able to win more than that number of games against the Power 5. It's usually about 10 to 15% of the games. Now, we also included the FCS there. 3-78 against the Power 5 this year. And consider this, Barry Odom's UNLV team, that is 3-0 for the first time in its history, owns 2 of those wins. Week 1 against Houston by 3 touchdowns, and then against Kansas on this night. Also, our thanks to Jackson Johnson for this gem. For the first time since 1984, UNLV is 3-0. It is the 6th time in school history that the Rebels have started the season at 3-0. Again, they knock off Kansas 23-20. And then the other score tonight, of course, probably more significant just because they're better teams on the field. The other one was that Kansas State and Arizona got together, 2 new combatants and nemesis in the Big 12. But keep in mind, this was not a conference game. So 2 of the best teams, or what was supposed to be 2 of the best teams in the Big 12, got together tonight in Manhattan, Kansas, and the Wildcats win it 31-7. But that was not a Big 12 game, much like the Utah-Baylor game last week, not a Big 12 game. So Kansas State and Arizona still both 0-0 in the Big 12. Kansas now has 2 losses after 3 weeks, losing to Illinois and now losing to UNLV, who was about a touchdown to 8-point underdog in that game. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Let's take your calls. We got the real MVP on the line.
Hey, Mark, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing great. Good to hear from you as always. What's going on tonight?
Man, I just watched the Big 12 just solidify themselves as the worst conference in America, Mark. I mean, Kansas was projected by ESPN's FPI to be the best team in the Big 12.
Yeah.
And their quarterback is not good. I know he was electric last year. I know he's got that athleticism that people love. But if you watch the game, Mark, he made 2 inexplicable throws that costed them points.
Yeah, I can't comment too much on Jalen Daniels' performance tonight necessarily. I got home about halftime of the Kansas State-Arizona game. I was out tonight, got home, and had Kansas State and Arizona on. So let's see, it was halftime. So it was already close to the fourth quarter for the other game. And then I went back and I watched the last couple series on the Kansas game. But yeah, I watched the last couple series. So,
well, let me fill you in, okay?
Yep.
Let me fill you in. So at the end of half, with about a minute left, Jalen Daniels throws a bomb. He was apparently he watched Notre Dame versus Northern Illinois and saw what Riley Leonard did and decided that was a good throw Riley Leonard made down the middle. That was 15 yards under throw. Because he made that exact same throw. UNLV basically ran it to like the 30, I believe, which costed them points. And because UNLV, Mark, oh my gosh, they had the worst clock management I have ever seen, okay? So they have two timeouts, 34 seconds left, okay? They throw a 6-yard completion, okay? They do not call timeout. Instead, they decide to do this weird, like, we're calling a play, scramble, nobody has any idea what's going on. They let the clock get all the way down to 3 seconds, Mark. 3 seconds before they snap the ball. And they have 2 timeouts. And then they ran a wheel route that Kansas didn't cover and scored a touchdown.
They got bailed out by scoring a touchdown with 3 seconds left after they wasted 31 seconds with 2 timeouts.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was terrible. Even the announcers said this is abysmal, like horrible or abysmal clock management. It was horrendous, Mark. It is easily the dumbest decision of this college football season. It is right below the Mario Cristobal non-knee decision. It was that bad.
Yeah, anytime that you're in need of scoring a touchdown, you're attempting to score, and you leave yourself less time than timeouts, basically, meaning you cannot possibly in any way run 2 plays and you've got 2 timeouts. So you've set yourself up to leave timeouts on the board and you still have yardage to gain. Yes, that's bad game. That's just incredibly inexplicable, stupid.
What's even worse, Mark, when they threw the ball on the wheel route, okay, when he caught it, there was all zeros left. So it wasn't like even if he got out of bounds for a good gain of 15 yards.
Yeah.
It was just all around stupid. And they had 2 timeouts. So even if you want to make the argument that, well, they could have clock management and they just had 1 timeout and maybe they didn't get it, they weren't confident in their kicker or something, I could somewhat see that argument. It's still stupid, but they had 2 timeouts.
So again, they ran this play from what yard line?
30, I think the 30, and they completed a 6 yards to the 24.
Okay, so they ran the wheel route play that scored the touchdown from the 24.
Right, with 3 seconds to go.
So their kicker must be no good. So they figured that they can't score a touchdown, and they did not throw the ball in the end zone. Yeah, there's so many things that went wrong there, but their big fault was way back at 34 seconds.
Right, and then at 11 minutes in the third quarter, Jalen Daniels is late, throws it over the middle of the field, and the middle linebacker just steps right in front of the receiver. And UNLV runs the ball all the way down to the 5-yard line. They couldn't score on that play, so they only kicked 3. And that was a horrible pass as well. Something else I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention from the previous play, was at that point in the game, Mark, it was 12-17, okay? And they kicked the extra point to make it 13-17. Why UNLV didn't go for 2 on that play to make it 14-17, I have no idea. Do you have any idea why they decided to make it a 4-point game instead of going to make it a 3-point game?
It was only halftime.
I understand that, Mark, but I'm pretty sure the analytics would suggest keep making a field goal game is significantly more advantageous than a 4-point game.
Yeah, well, I typically agree with the analytics, but not at that stage in the game, because you don't know at that stage of the game if you're going to be playing a 20-17 game, or most likely you're going to be playing a 38-34 kind of game, and you need to just keep the points. You shouldn't be chasing points at halftime. I agree with that, because we can come up with all sorts of scenarios in which they would need that 1 point.
You're right. I thought it was a questionable call. Worth some
17,
discussion.
17-13, 17-12, after they scored the touchdown, you want them to go for 2 to make it 17-14. That's obvious. But let's say there's 2 minutes left on the clock. That's an obvious play. But there's an entire half to be played. And let's say you kick the extra point. And well, there's so many scenarios we could go through that can be played out over the course of an entire half. That only being down 4 puts you in a good position. Again, yeah, I could draw that up a zillion different ways. Yeah, I believe that you kick the extra point. I don't even argue that one.
Okay.
I don't chase points at halftime when, again, you don't know what the scoring situations are going to be down the road.
I understand. It's just, to me, that 3 is a lot better than 4. I'm just surprised it wasn't even discussed.
That, you're most teams only have 1 or 2 or 3 at the most 2-point plays that they feel confident in. And I don't think that you really want to show that at that point and go to your second best 2-point play or your third best if you really need it in crunch time or in overtime.
Fair and valid points, Mark. I didn't think about that. Second point for this game is UNLV now the clear-cut team to be in the G5 slot if they win their conference, since they've beaten 2 Power 5 opponents?
Well, if they win their conference, that's the key phrase there. Yeah, sure. They in winning these 2 games, especially when Houston turns around and is competitive against Oklahoma, and we would expect Kansas to be a competitive team in the conference in the Big 12. So yeah, UNLV is that team. Tulane gets its shot against Oklahoma. So if Tulane would win the American and let's say have a really competitive loss against a Kansas State team that could be the Big 12 champion or something close to that, plus a possible win against Oklahoma, that's another candidate. Boise State showed, they really could have made their mark, of course, against Oregon, but they still showed themselves to be close. So right now, those are the 3 most impressive teams out of the group of 5.
I would add one more to that, and that'd be our Northern Illinois friends.
Oh, well, yes, our friends at Northern Illinois with the win against Notre Dame, of course. Yes, 2-0.
Yeah, and they've got by far the most impressive win their group of 5 is going to have all season, in my opinion.
You got to think so.
Right. Were you surprised how thoroughly dominant Kansas State was against Arizona? I thought this was going to be a close game. I didn't know who was going to win the game, but Kansas State was just the better team from start to finish, and that surprised me.
As this game unfolded, and I picked it up at 14-7 in the second half, and it was at the start of halftime when I got home, and I had recorded the game, and so I wanted to get through some of the key plays in the first half, so I kind of moved around the first half to see what was going on and saw that Arizona came out of the gate and looked impressive on the first drive. And then the Kansas State defense took hold, especially that pass rush through Noah Fafita off his game. That the more it sank in, I thought, Mark, you made a stupid prediction here because I picked Kansas State to win the game. I don't want to say extremely confident. They were fairly evenly ranked teams going into the game, but I was pretty soundly confident that Kansas State would win the game, but just 7.5 points was just too much for me to bypass. And then the more I thought about it, okay, you've got an extremely well-coached team, a capable, respected coach in Chris Kleiman. They come off a game in which they don't have a letdown because they win the game against Tulane, but it's a good, tough game for him to be able to teach his team this week. Okay, you can't take anybody lightly. You gutted out this win, but you're not too big. Don't get a big head here because you know what just happened here against Tulane, and they're coming back home. Arizona's never played in the Big 12. They've never played in this stadium. Brent Brennan has never coached in the Power 5, never necessarily in this type of atmosphere for what had a big game feel to it, relatively speaking. And I just started to get that sense, okay, I missed it on this one. Kansas State, I can feel the ambush coming on. And of course, that's what happened.
Yeah, I was disappointed because I thought this is probably going to be the best game of the weekend, which is kind of disappointing to say. But if you've looked at the weekend slate of games, Mark, there's not a whole lot of meat on that bone this week. I mean, I'll take
Not
any
really.
college football.
No, not when College Game Day, and I hate to bring it up, but I just did. I believe is going to Columbia, South Carolina for the LSU South Carolina game.
Yeah, Mark, I'm hoping and praying South Carolina is an elite juggernaut. I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping they go 12-0, okay? I doubt it, but I'm hoping. Otherwise, we got a lot of questions to answer down here.
When Kentucky and Georgia, to your point, is the ABC primetime game. It's ABC. Yeah, they're on ABC, correct? As the primetime
Correct.
game.
Kirk Herbstreit's going to be calling the game, which
Yes, there you go. There's
probably the only time he actually is getting paid for his job, because I would go to any game and gladly. You don't have to pay me, but you'd have to pay me to go to this game because Kentucky's going to lose probably 60 or 70 points, Mark.
Yes, the ABC producers, if they know their industry, if they know their craft, they are working on storylines all week to fill the second half.
Right. I'm hoping we hear about maybe a third string running back that I don't even know about on his story, because it's going to get ugly, Mark. It's going to get ugly. Our secondary is going to be absolutely torched. Carson Beck may have 400 yards of passing in this game. It's going to get ugly. The final thought I'll have for tonight, Mark, is I think I understand what Notre Dame has become, Mark. You know how everybody has a plus sign at the end of their name now, ESPN Plus, NBC Plus, CBS. You know, everybody's got a plus. Notre Dame is just Nebraska Plus. That's all they are. They are just a slight upgrade from Nebraska. Okay? And what I mean by that is they had a coach that everybody hated that was doing really well, and then he left town. Everybody hated him for a few years, and then they realized they weren't all that, and they're going to get humbled.
Nebraska Plus. I like that. You came up with a good one again this week. Nebraska Plus. I brought that up the other day in talking to, I don't remember who it was. I talked to way too many people, but yes, Bo Pelini rode out of town, of course, after all those 9-win seasons, and they replace him with Mike Riley. They still haven't replaced Bo Pelini. Maybe they have now, although let's not get too crazy about a win against Colorado. And now we've got Brian Kelly, who, of course, is scorned by Notre Dame fans as never winning a big game, but he didn't lose to Marshall, Stanford, Northern Illinois in the span of 2 seasons and 2 games. You know, take anybody else who's supposed to be elite in this sport. You have to span decades. This is how pathetic that Notre Dame stat is that we're looking at right here. You would have to span decades at Alabama, Ohio State, and maybe a few other places before you would find losses like that.
Mark, I'm a Kentucky fan, and the last time we've lost to somebody that terrible is 2016 to Southern Miss.
Okay, there you go.
I mean, and we're terrible historically all the time.
I can't think of the last time Ohio State lost to, first of all, they haven't lost to a group of 5 since the 1990 Liberty Bowl against Air Force, but that Air Force team was a good team, not, like the Stanford team was a couple years ago, and Marshall was 9-4. They were decent for a group of 5, but Alabama, of course, pre-Nick Saban, they lost to Louisiana Tech, and they lost to somebody else of that ilk, and I always forget who that was. Louisiana.
They lost to Louisiana Monroe under Saban.
Under Saban, yeah, his first season, and a couple years before that, it was Louisiana Tech. So for Bama, it's been close to pushing 15 or 20 years. And again, Ohio State, I don't know when they lost to somebody like that. Our friends at Michigan, of course, had a run of those games under Brady Hoke and Rich Rod. Georgia, we're not going to go through the annals, but it's been forever for some of those. But Marcus Freeman, that's not a good look at all. That's just atrocious when this schedule just seemingly it's set up for Notre Dame to have a big season.
Right. I mean, Mark, they're down so bad that they think Texas A&M's a big win now. Seriously, and I'm not making that up. They seriously believe Texas A&M is a big win. I mean, that's like going to Illinois and beating Illinois.
Well, what you just said, following this past Saturday in Illinois beating Kansas, isn't quite as ridiculous as it may have sounded a couple of weeks ago. Might have sounded like a stretch. I would think Texas A&M's a bit better than that, but yeah, they're a program that wins 7 or 8 games a year. They're a lot of money and rowdy students off the field, but once you go between the white lines and recruiting rankings, but once you get between the white lines, Texas A&M has been weak for a long time.
Right. And Texas A&M, they're just a lot of cachet. They've got everything except a good football team, Mark.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it right there. Cachet. That's facilities, money, recruiting rankings, tons of people in the stands, 105,000 people. They probably lead the nation, lead the world in traditions, and traditions that are kind of hokey and strange, but they love them and they tout them as being the best. Yeah, it's a very odd football program and tradition, but they do not get it done on the field regardless of who they hire. Although Mike Elko, of course, just started out, but regardless of who they hire, who they recruit, they have been a utter failure for a long time.
Correct. Last national championship since 1939, Mark. Almost 90 years ago. Very disappointing. Yeah.
I was just going to say that I often cite South Carolina as being the most disappointing football program in the country from this standpoint. Being in the SEC, rabid fans, packed the stadium, surrounded by football talent in regards to the high school ranks, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina, it's just incredible that they've been a doormat generally for decades and generations. But Texas A&M somewhere in that place as well.
Right. They're not. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Final thing I'll ask you, Mark, is Colorado versus Colorado State going to be the best game tomorrow? I'm trying to figure out what to watch tomorrow, Mark, because there isn't a whole lot of anything. I think I'm watching Boston College versus Missouri for sure. But outside of that, it's really thin pickings.
Well, you are an astute football fan, and so I'm sure you somewhat tried to balance. Okay, what means something? What are relevant games versus what are going to be entertaining games, and hopefully they're one and the same. Of course, Texas and Michigan, from a name brand standpoint, it doesn't get much bigger and better than that. But I think you had a beat on the game that it wasn't going to be a good football game. Yes, big brands, Fox Noon, and all this hype, but not a good football game because one of the teams was so much better than the other. Then you've got your smattering of games across the country that nobody cares about, but could be really entertaining games. Maybe you're hitting on one. Of course, it was one of the best games just in regards to build up, hype, storylines, drama, hatred between the teams, the coaches, the coaching staffs. Obviously, anytime Deion's there is always something that was said that week that you can spin out of control. This time it involved Jay Norvell's wife's comments against, I believe, Shiloh Sanders. And then Deion, I got to admit, and I stated this the other day, that I was impressed with his rebuttal because it was brought to his attention, and he already was aware by one of the reporters during his news conference of what Jay Norvell's wife had tweeted, which apparently was derogatory, but it's been taken down. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what was stated, but Deion, to his credit, and I've been critical of Deion at times, but basically said, I got to meet the young lady this summer, and she was at Big 12 Media Days, I believe, and she was cordial and very nice and very pleasant, and I enjoyed it. And so that's how I'm going to think of her. That's how I'm going to take her. I'm going to believe in the person that she showed me to be. That's how I'm going to take people. So that I thought that was pretty much of a stand-up move by Deion.
I agree, and he needs to get some good grace, Mark, because I'm not sure how much of the corporate media you've been watching, but the paradigm shifts are very powerful within the corporate media, similar to Florida State when they went 13-0. They were definitely in the playoffs until they weren't in the playoffs. The corporate media shift on Deion Sanders as everybody thought he was the greatest coach of all time. He's basically Marcus Freeman 2.0, according to Notre Dame fans, how they view Marcus Freeman. And now everybody's talking about if they lose this game, he's going to get on the hot seat. He could get fired and all that stuff. So it's very interesting to see the paradigm shift with the corporate media. Have you seen that?
Well, that's well done by you again, because what you were basically underlying is that it all comes down to winning. Now, there's some nice guys out there that people love and respect, and they may hang on for a little bit longer than your typical guy because of their goodwill and good intent and being a respectable kind of guy, like a David Shaw at Stanford, let's say, who had to rack up 3 consecutive 3-win seasons before they finally said enough's enough. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got your ornery Bo Pelini, who gets ousted after a string of 9-win seasons because he's just not that likable. So there are your opposite ends of the spectrum examples. But basically what you're saying is that when Deion Sanders brought something to the table, which wasn't backed up by much substance, it was backed up by a 3-0 record against 3 bad football teams, but at least it had the aura, the smoke and mirrors of being substantial, and it was flashy and fun to watch. And of course, he had the playmaking football players on the field, and of course, he had his brand to be the facade of it. That was interesting to people, and the celebrities jumped on the bandwagon and the corporate media. And when it was wrapped around in 3-0, then that was awesome. And so then he could be harsh, and he could be a little bit rude, and he could basically tell players to pack up their suitcases and leave, and he could be kind of a jerk, and there was no issue with that. And now he's been kind and just gave this nice gesture this week to somebody who had wronged his son, but that's not going to matter because his football team's lousy and they're ill prepared for these games, and they just got rolled by Nebraska in a game that they could have lost by 50 or 60 points if Nebraska really wanted to play that kind of game.
Completely agree, Mark. It's been fun talking to you. Hopefully, I'm talking to you tomorrow after Kentucky loses by like 17 points.
Okay. We're hoping for a 17-point loss. Okay.
Yeah, we're just here to cover, Mark. We're here to cover.
Very nice. Thanks to Real. The Real MVP getting the job done. We appreciate the calls. We got Jeffrey on the line. Jeffrey, what's going on?
Hey, Mark. How's it going tonight?
It is going well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I was watching some football tonight, the 2 games that were on, and I went 1-1 on my picks. Got the Kansas game wrong. I gave Jalen Daniels another chance. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I feel like he's not the same player right now. Something's off. I think they also have a new offensive coordinator, if I'm correct.
Sure.
And that could be part of the problem too, but he just doesn't look the same as he did last year and the year before. I think the injuries might be catching up with him. Maybe kind of like a Phil Dracovic type of situation. I hope not, but he doesn't look the same.
Phil Dracovic, he has to be the most recent of where are they now? He has to be the most recent where it seems like he hasn't played for 10 years, but it's only been about a year and a half. And it's like, where did Phil Dracovic go? Because there was a time in which I thought he was going to be a big time quarterback. I remember seeing him step on the field in his first game against North Carolina, almost beat a better team. And he looked like the next big thing, and he wasn't. So back to 2024, Jalen Daniels, of course, only played 3 games last year. So we'll cut him some slack to a certain extent. He hasn't, he's never really been the starting full-time quarterback for this team for an extended period of time, because the season before it was Jason Bean and he battling back and forth. And who are they going to play? Are they going to go with the more experienced guy, the veteran guy in Bean? They went with Jalen Daniels kind of back and forth. And then, of course, this last season, he got hurt after 3 games. So, yeah, again, I don't know if you heard the previous caller. I didn't see too much of the game, but apparently he was kind of scattershot and all over the place.
The game was insane, just like Jalen Daniels. I mean, the fumble. Literally, there was a fumble from the UNLV quarterback that Kansas had about 6 chances to get, and they kept reaching for it instead of just falling on the ball. And then UNLV somehow got the ball back. Like, if Kansas had just gotten the fumble, right, in that sequence, they would have probably won the game easily. Because I mean, UNLV might have had another chance to get a stop, but it was absolutely insane how many times that Kansas had a chance to get that ball and they didn't get it. And then later on in the drive, Kansas was all the way, or UNLV rather, was all the way down at the end of the field, like getting close to the end zone, and they were at like the 1 yard line. And literally after the play was over, I didn't think he got it, but the refs gave it to him. It's hard to tell on the spot because there's tons of bodies down there on whether he got the first down at the 1, because that's where the first down was. And then literally after that, there was a penalty on UNLV for like unnecessary roughness or whatever after the play. So you would assume, right, 1st and goal at the 1. And then a 15-yard penalty would be 1st and goal at the 16. Well, what ended up happening is for whatever reason, they negated the 1st and goal and said it was 1st and 10 at the 16. I don't know how that's possible. If they were at the 1, it was 1st and goal. And then so basically UNLV got like 7 chances to score on that possession instead of 4 on that particular sequence. And then they ended up scoring on 4th and goal again after getting the first down on the 1st and 10 at the 16 that they shouldn't have had because it should have been 1st and goal. They scored, and then Kansas did absolutely nothing with it when they got the ball back. It was just a dumb finish to the game, to be honest. It was insane. I don't understand that rule there where they gave UNLV 1st and 10 when it should have been 1st and goal. But congrats to UNLV and being 3-0 for the first time since 1976. But Kansas has some problems. They do not look the same team as they were last year. They don't look anywhere near the same. And Jalen Daniels just looks kind of off.
Yeah, well, they're not scoring the points that they did last year, that's for sure. And like you say, their offensive coordinator off to Penn State. So they're apparently missing Kotelnicki. Can't think of his first name, but the Penn State offensive coordinator there at Kansas. But at the same time, I would expect Kansas is going to pull off some decent wins in the Big 12. And I just think that the entire conference, save possibly Utah, although Cam Rising out on Saturday, I don't know how long that injury is going to last or how long he's going to be out, because now they're having to go to a freshman quarterback. So that may bring Utah back to the pack, and we could really have a free-for-all in the Big 12, and we could have my dream, which would be an 8-5 Big 12 champion that goes to the college football playoff as the number 4 seed with a bye.
Hey, it'd be hilarious, and it would expose how broken that system is, that they should not have it set up this way. It would be hilarious. I'm on board for that. 8-5 Big 12 champion. That would be crazy.
Because Kansas is your team now. So if you're rooting for that scenario, Kansas is your team because they've already lost 2 non-conference games. Now they need to go into the Big 12, and they need to just, let's say, go 7 and there could be a log jam, I think, Jeffrey, and we could see a 6-3 team maybe win some kind of crazy tiebreaker for second place and get to the Big 12 championship game. And if that's Kansas, then they go to the Big 12 championship game at 7-5, and then they win and they're 8-5, and then I get my wish.
Well, I hope it happens. That would be crazy. I think even 9-4 would be good enough. It would get the point across, but 8-5 would be the best. That would be epic. But the Kansas State game as well, a non-conference game, not even a conference game, which they did the same thing with UNC versus like Georgia Tech a few years ago or whatever, where it wasn't. Wake, that's it, Wake. You got
Baylor
that
and
one.
Utah last week.
Baylor and Utah. I don't like this. I don't like these fake, conference games. They're conference games, but they're not conference games. It's insane. Fake non-conference games, rather. I can't stand that. But
if I was Indiana, I would have been asking for that a long time ago. Can we make this Ohio State game a non-conference game?
Yes,
Oh, Jeffrey, come on back.
I would be
Hopefully you're
lobbying
still
for
here.
that. If that was the
There you
case, and they would have made the Big Ten championship game that year in 2020. That'd be crazy. But yeah, the Kansas State game though, Arizona needed Jed Fish to stay. They needed Jed Fish to stay really badly because him leaving for the Washington job, and they did lose a few players. They just don't look nowhere near as good. Because you got Fafita and McMillan, but there's not much else. They kind of almost feel like Colorado. It's just a couple players, and then the rest of the team is basically awful. That's kind of what Arizona feels like right now.
That's what it looked like tonight. Fafita didn't have any weapons outside of McMillan, didn't have time to throw. They were overmatched. The Kansas State defense was way too much. Once Avery Johnson got things rolling, he was tough to contain. They didn't seem like they had the kind of athletes that could get him down either in the backfield, chase him down, or when he would take off and run. Yeah, they looked a bit slow and unathletic. Yeah, I would agree with that.
For sure. And the Thursday night game, Arizona State, Texas State, that was a good game. I picked Arizona State. I went Arizona State. I was worried. I thought Texas State had a great shot with Jordan McLeod, the former James Madison quarterback, now back there, who I think is better than TJ Finley. I think he's better, actually. But Arizona State's looking pretty good. 3-0. They're not a great team or anything, but Kenny Dillingham, they look better this year. I think they are an improved team. Maybe a bowl team. I don't know.
Yeah, considering if you look at their results from, let's say, last season, they were losing to Fresno State 29-0, and obviously only won 3 games the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, they have tougher games ahead, but it's a good start and a good sign. And surprisingly, that line on that game against Texas State, they were only a 1.5 or 2-point favorite anyway.
Yeah, it was a very close spread, and they barely covered. So it was a good game. But obviously, everybody is disking this week's lineup of games, and I get it. There's not a lot of great games. I get it. But you have Indiana UCLA on Saturday night. I'm still gonna say that is a good game. It really is on NBC in Rose Bowl for the first time since 1968. That's a big deal.
You're kidding us, right, Jeffrey? That's all tongue in cheek, right?
I think it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Well,
and they're favored. Indiana's favored.
You're a true and pure college football fan if you believe that Indiana playing at UCLA is a big deal.
It's a big deal, especially for Indiana. I think that, to me, that's the game of the night. That's just my opinion, though.
I said something roughly the same to our Ohio State guys when we were reviewing the Big Ten this week. I said, I'm just a strange person that loves college football and likes odd games. And I just think that this is extremely odd to see Indiana going out to the Rose Bowl to play UCLA as a conference game. And so I'm all into that too. I'm all for that too. But for that to be a primetime game on the college football Saturday night slate is pretty pathetic. It's a bad run of games. It's a bad. Let me clarify that. We don't know how good the games are going to be. The matchups are awful. They're pathetic on Saturday. They're not. What's the best matchup or most meaningful matchup on the day on Saturday?
Alabama, Wisconsin.
Alabama, Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not that good. Yeah, it's an awful slate of games. But to your point, the matchups, meaning Michigan, Texas, that's about the biggest game you can put together in terms of name brand. Michigan just won the national championship. Texas is apparently back. All of that. It had every storyline and all that. Not a good game. We, of course, could go through a bunch of no-name teams that had really good games and matchups last week. So, yeah, the games are going to have to play out. And my bet is there's going to be some really fun games, interesting endings, wild finishes. I think we're in store for that kind of look at this. Who knows who's going to win these games? Who's going to win LSU, South Carolina? South Carolina gets to prove that last week wasn't a fluke. And LSU, of course, needs to win because they've already lost a game. Memphis and Florida State.
I love this game. That's a good one. The Mike Norvell Bowl.
Yes. And I love that we've got I want to see if Boston College can go to Missouri and compete. I think they can.
If they compete, then that would be a great look for Bill O'Brien.
Yes.
And maybe it'll make Florida State look a little bit better, especially if they can win.
I don't although I love that the powers that be worked the schedule, worked the situation, and made sure that we had the Civil War and that we had the Apple Cup continue. But to play those games at the same time, moronic, idiotic. Of course, we need a commissioner. We need a governing body over scheduling that would say, I don't care what network selected what. We're going to separate these games so Pac-12 traditionalists can watch both of these games. But regardless, Oregon State could be fun. I think the Ducks have the potential, of course, to wake up this week and blow out Oregon State. But it being in Corvallis gives me a little bit of hope that it's going to be a good game. And Jeffrey, stat for you here. We had 18 double-digit upsets last year among Power 5 teams. We already have 7 this year in 2 weeks. And
wow.
Tulane, Oklahoma. And man, when you think about Boise almost beating Oregon and a few others like that, there could have been 3 or 4 more easy. Tulane and Oklahoma, that's a potential upset right there.
Yeah, I actually picked it.
Did you? Okay. Well,
I went with Tulane, so we'll see.
Well, think of it this way, and you probably are. Kansas State, Oklahoma, who's the better team? I don't know. They're roughly the same team. They're both the 15th to 20th best team in the country, and Tulane played as well as they did against Kansas State and had a 10-point lead. This Kansas State team that went out and whipped up on Arizona, and Oklahoma is hurting. They are decimated at wide receiver and offensive line.
Absolutely. And then obviously Notre Dame, they need a win against Purdue really badly. They need to get back on track. That's a decent enough game as well.
So, Jeffrey, of course, I'm not allowed to root. I don't root. These are all neutral teams to me, of course, but I'm going to root a little bit here. I'm going to root for Purdue. I want Purdue to win. I love the Big Ten West, the old Big Ten West, so I'm rooting for Purdue. I hate to tell you this since we've got you on the line, but of course I want Wisconsin to beat Alabama, but that's not happening. I want Tulane to win and Purdue. If I could have any 2 upsets on the day, I'm going to give you 2 upsets. Let me look at mine just to make sure. Those are the 2 that I want. Oh, I would throw out like Wake Forest beating Ole Miss. That would be great, but that's not happening.
Yeah, I picked Ole Miss big.
Yeah, they're going to blow out Wake
What about
Forest.
Kentucky over Georgia for
Well,
the real?
yeah, if I could have anything, sure. But I'm going to give you 2 reasonable upsets, and it's going to be Tulane and it's going to be Purdue. Not that I picked those. I'm going to give you one more game, and then I'm going to let you take the stage. But I like this Maryland-Virginia game as
Me
well.
too.
And I like UCF and TCU.
But see, these games right here, yes, they're not great games, but they're still probably going to be competitive football games. If you love college football at all, how can these games not at least be interesting at the very least? I like all these games.
And the other nice thing about it, Jeffrey, is that these games are not being played at the end of the season when, let's say, Virginia's 4-6 and Maryland 6-4, TCU 6-4, and UCF's 5-5. They still have hope. Now, we may not believe in their hope, but all these teams still have hope. Virginia's already won an ACC game. TCU beat Stanford. Like, it's nice early in the season. I love to see these teams that never play each other. Of course, we had Maryland, Virginia play the first of a home and home last year. And of course, since UCF's joining the conference, they'll be playing TCU. But we've never seen UCF and TCU play before.
Yeah, it's a unique matchup, just like with Indiana, UCLA. I mean, like don't get me wrong. I agree with you 100%. If UCLA was like 3-7, Indiana is like 5-5, 5-6 or whatever, and they're playing, it's not gonna be as big of a deal. But they're both undefeated. they still have everything ahead of them. You know, the whole season's ahead of them. They haven't had a blemish yet. It looks nicer. It looks like new Big Ten, foe in UCLA, Indiana not having been there in so long. And like you said, UCF, TCU, they don't play each other. Now they're playing each other because they're conference opponent. It's still unique. It's new right now. Like even with the 12-team playoff, it's new. It's cool at first. Like everything kind of loses its shine eventually. But when it's at first, when it's the first time you're used to seeing something like that, like Cal and Stanford being in the ACC, even if that might not last long, it's not looking like it's going to last that long. But possibly. But it's just unique at first. It does look very cool. I do want to ask you about that, though, about real quick about the Pac-12. The Pac-12's not dead.
I love it.
They're back.
It's awesome.
I mean, what the Mountain West is getting decimated now.
Yeah, there's not going to be no Mountain West, although they'll scarf up a bunch of North Dakota states, I guess, to try to stay alive. But here's the deal that's hilarious in all of this is that if the current structure stays in place and the current agreement, as long as by July of 2026, the PAC conference is able to get to 8 teams, they maintain their power conference status.
They're not
so
even
they
close
collect
to
all
a
these
power
crappy
conference.
schools, and they can play for a conference championship, and they can be even worse than the Big 12, and they can get a bye. And who's going to be the best? They could have Washington State going to the playoffs as the number 4 seed as the bye.
That is so broken, Mark. I mean, they're not a power conference. I mean, I literally wrote that on Twitter, and some people were laughing. I'm like, they're not a power conference still. Like, it's over. I mean, that dream went away when they lost USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. I mean, even if they saw like Arizona, Colorado, Utah, that's not really a power conference. It would be better, but Boise State, Colorado State, these are not power conferences. Boise State's close, but I mean, it's messed up. I'm just laughing. I mean, college football really we've gotten into bizarre territory at this point with everything that's going on. You can't even, because what they're going to do, like, that's why, because I've noticed like every year that they're adding new teams to the FBS, because it used to be only like 128 teams. Now it's like 134 or something like that. They're just going to keep adding more FCS teams to the FBS to make up for these teams leaving to these conferences. Then they got to replace teams because, that's how the Sun Belt got James Madison.
Yeah.
They got Coastal Carolina. All these teams came from the lower level. They just keep adding more teams. And now that the Mountain West is getting decimated, like you said, they're going to add maybe North Dakota State. That's another FCS team. So we're just adding more FBS teams to make up for all the movement.
Yeah, what's happened in this movement that you just mentioned in the last 5 years is that the Power Five has sucked up teams from the Group of Five, and then the two best conferences in the Group of Five, the Mountain West and especially the American, have raided the Conference USA and the Sun Belt, and then the Conference USA and the Sun Belt have raided the FCS ranks.
The only one that hasn't been raided is the MAC.
Yeah, nobody wants those teams. Nobody wants those teams out of the MAC. Jackson, thank you so much for the super chat. Jackson says, word of the night coming from DeReal, Nebraska plus. Notre Dame is Nebraska plus.
Yeah, I actually saw someone say that online a while back, and I'm like, I don't know if to me, I think Notre Dame is a little bit better than Nebraska plus. But hey, if they keep trending in the wrong direction, then I would actually agree with that. But I still think Notre Dame is ahead by a significant amount.
Okay, Jeffrey, we mentioned Indiana tonight, UCLA, Virginia. Those are the first 3 teams that come to mind that fit this mold. So you tell me what team that is usually awful, that we thought was bad coming into this season, that's off to a good start, could actually turn out to be good.
Well, maybe it's somewhat of a biased answer. I think Indiana. I do. I think Indiana could be good, legitimately.
What does good mean?
I don't know what your definition is, but 8-4 is possible.
Sure.
I think
No,
Indiana
I was
could
just
go
asking
8-4.
you. You don't have to hit my definition.
I didn't know like what the definition of good is, because I mean,
Well,
like you said, Indiana UCLA to 99% of people is not a big deal. So it could be my definition's wrong. Like Indiana's not going to go like 10-2, and I think 8-4 is definitely possible. So I would say Indiana.
well, I will say that there's two ways to look at good in my eyes. Number one is just based on 6-6 is mediocre. And so if you take away any kind of expectations, 8-4 is good. 7-5 is decent. 8-4 is good. But then if you put the expectation on the team, if you're 8-4 at Georgia,
That's terrible.
that's horrendous. But if you're 8-4 at Indiana, that's remarkable. That's Tom Allen good.
Yeah, Tom Allen for 2 year good. 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I miss those 2 years. I really do. I'll never forget the Penix score, 2-point conversion. I'll just never forget the headbutt that Tom Allen did with his defensive player. It was a good little era. It didn't last very long. It was short lived, and it had a lot of low points as well, like losing the bowl game, especially the Tennessee one in heartbreaking fashion. But yeah, that was great. And like you said, I mean, if Signetti could get Indiana to 8-4 in year one, I mean, that would be insane. I mean, I know the schedule is not insanely hard compared to what Indiana normally has, but it still would be very impressive. I mean, maybe Virginia could do it being in the weak ACC. You never know. I just think Indiana is a better team. That they would have the best chance to do it. I don't think UCLA will, because I mean, right
now. So we didn't catch some of that, but we think we got the gist there. Got a bit locked up. So let me ask you this before we let you go, Jeffrey. Are we ready to announce a new programming update here at the Voice of College Football for next week?
If you like to announce it, that sounds great.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page there. So listen up, folks. So Jeffrey will be hosting our Indiana Live. I never thought I'd spit those words out. I never thought that would come out of my mouth. But we've expanded to the point, folks. Indiana Live here at the Voice of College Football, officially Indiana Hoosiers Live, staying with our naming convention, and our host right here, Jeffrey Johnson. How about that? And we're going to debut this college football extravaganza for you next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, correct?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. I mean, we got the details basically about set, so I'm excited about it. I mean, I know a lot of people say, Indiana's not worth anything, but I mean, I think that they deserve the spotlight at times. That's why I'm so hyped for this game.
I did not think that we were expanding to Indiana Live this soon. Indiana beat Arkansas. They beat Michigan State. They beat Auburn. They beat Penn State. They beat all these schools to the table to have a live show here at the Voice of College Football. So Indiana Live, we'll give you more details coming up, but I think this is the way we will play it here the first few weeks, folks. So we'll have Jeffrey right here on the main channel because we want to build up the Indiana channel. So we will simulcast, and we will have Jeffrey here on Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time talking Indiana football with all of you. That should be a good time. That should be fun.
It sounds absolutely crazy. I still can't even believe it. Like you're saying it right now, I don't even believe it. Like it's wild. Because like you said, I mean, I didn't know if Indiana was ever gonna get a channel. Like I mean, I just like talking college football, like any team. Like I love talking all teams, but Indiana, they're just a team that I have a really big soft spot for. I mean, they don't get any love, they don't get any attention, and I just enjoy coming on and hyping up the Hoosiers as much as I can. But I really appreciate it, Mark. I really do.
Absolutely. You certainly can talk college football. Everybody likes you. You come with all sorts of good ideas, good thoughts. You're a student of the game. You've got enthusiasm. We've definitely enjoyed our conversations with you for years. Appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for all your support, all your loyalty here to the Voice of College Football. So it is our honor and our privilege to add you to the team. And again, we will launch this Indiana show on Tuesday, and we'll give you all the support that we can, and we'll blast it out on social media, and we'll get ourselves a big crowd in here on Tuesday going forward.
That sounds fantastic. Like I said, I really appreciate it, Mark, and I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. Absolutely.
Just
And it
don't
would
take
definitely
over my
help if
channel.
Signetti has them doing good, right? It really will. But if they're not, still hyping up those Hoosiers.
Sure. Hey, as long as they're playing football, you'll still talk Hoosiers, talk the Big Ten, whatever you want to do there. And we've got Waxman saying, Jeffrey for president. Smart kid, awesome stuff. Mark, great stuff.
I appreciate it, Wax, man. I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but I appreciate it a lot. I really do. I appreciate all of you in the chat and you, Mark. I mean, it's a fantastic community. I've said it for multiple years now that I'm just glad that I stumbled upon this channel, 45 years ago. Like, I mean, I was like starving for just actual college football commentary, right? Like none of that, ridiculous, over the top, biased content. I was like, I found the voice of college football one day. It was like late 2019, early 2020. I'm like, this channel is fantastic. Mark knows exactly what he's doing. I was like, and he used to be at ESPN. I'm like, wow, that's insane. Like, he's awesome. It's crazy.
Yeah. People told me I was crazy for leaving ESPN, but that was a great time at ESPN, of course, for 19 years, but it was time to move on and do something fresh, do something different, and be my own boss. So Jeffrey, we appreciate you being here. And again, Jeffrey with Indiana Live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And we've started a Notre Dame Live in the last few weeks. We've started Alabama Live with Jackson. And we started Ole Miss Live last Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So we've got an Ole Miss Live show here with myself and Leanne Herring as well. So a lot of new content here at the Voice of College Football.
Hey, that the Voice of College Football has really like spread far and wide if you got a Vanderbilt Live. Got to get a Vanderbilt Live. I don't know if I can help with Vanderbilt, though.
We've done Indiana now. Anything's possible. Anything is possible. All right, Jeffrey. Appreciate you being here. Good to see you.
Definitely, Mar. Have a great night. Appreciate it again. And everybody like and subscribe to the Voice of College Football. Got to get to 50K and beyond. Appreciate it, Mark.
All right, let's get to a couple super chats, and then we'll take our call from Jackson here. We've got Adam. Thank you so much for the contribution, Adam. We appreciate you being here. Mark, yesterday was Friday the 13th. Can you recognize Jason Voorhees for his unique accomplishments? Did I miss the punchline? What am I missing here, folks? Please help me out on this one. Please help me. Help me in the chat. Help me anywhere. We want to be able to properly respond to Adam's super chat here. If there's a joke there, if there's a punchline I'm missing, yeah, I'm not plugged in on this one. So maybe Jackson can help us. Jackson, what's going on tonight?
It's going pretty good, but with horror movies, I do not know that much about that stuff. But I will say, though, Jeffrey, congrats on Hoosiers Live. I'm definitely looking forward to it. That is going to be an awesome show, I will say. How you doing tonight, Mark?
I am doing just fine. If Alabama ever plays Indiana in a college football playoff game, then you guys can collaborate.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's always fun anytime the both of us are collaborating. I mean, you should see, like, the conversation we have, like, off air. Like, it's like when we first met, like, we didn't know what time it was. We had such a great time when we first met one another. It was pretty fun. Like, we talked about, like, the sports world, the political world, pop culture, everything.
Pop culture with you and Jeffrey. I'd love to hear that.
Oh, yeah.
But you guys certainly have my blessing to get together and collaborate, even without an Alabama Indiana playoff game. So go to it. We're looking at Jason Voorhees right now. And it went right past me that it was Friday the 13th. I don't think that that's too uncommon. So, and I'm not one to pick up on these kind of things. So.
Oh, man. Well, I will say Friday night, Friday the 13th, I forgot about it being Friday the 13th, to tell you the truth. I was just so excited about some of the great games in college football tonight, like UNLV making some huge history tonight. The first time since 1984 that they've started 3-0. So that's pretty huge for Barry Odom and the UNLV Rebels. Honestly, I think they're making a huge play for whether they're going to go to the Pac-12 or the Pac-6, honestly.
Yeah, this is a good situation for them and good timing for them to get Barry Odom, have him rebuild the football program right in time for them to possibly make a jump to the Pac-6, 8, 12, whatever it's going to end up to be, because UNLV, they have been one of the worst programs in the history of college football. Their winning percentage is one of the very worst. It might be the worst. I think I did that research here recently, but being in Sin City there and with all the entertainment and the that being a destination, a locale, that's an interesting pickup possibly for the Pac conference.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens for the rest of the year. I'm already thinking about that UNLV Syracuse game that's going to be coming up a few weeks from now. It all depends on how Syracuse is doing. They're doing pretty good right now with Kyle McCord, but I mean, pretty good at Syracuse. I mean, they're not exactly Jim Brown Syracuse or Ernie Davis Syracuse, but still though, they're still doing all right in Fran Brown's first year. But Kansas, it's funny though that they're still in play for a playoff spot, as you and Jeffrey stated earlier tonight, where even though they're 1-2, they don't have any wins or losses in conference play. And the conference slate looks a little bit easier. They don't have Oklahoma State or Utah on that schedule that I can recall.
Yeah, I don't recall. Those Big 12 schedules are difficult to keep track of in terms of mentally for me to keep all those schedules. They all just kind of run together. There's really no pattern to them. But yeah, and thinking back on this super chat coming from Adam, if he would have left the Voorhees off of that statement, I would have made the connection immediately. If he would have just put Jason Friday the 13th, I would have been right there with him. But him being a USC fan, I was kind of going in a different direction. Yeah, this UNLV situation is rather intriguing. And you came up with a great stat there with the 1984 being the last time at 3-0. And then I followed up here at 3-78. That's the FCS and Group of 5 record against the Power 5. And UNLV has 2 of those wins.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, I know that Houston's in a rebuilding phase as of now with Willie Fritz, but it's still pretty good. You're 2-0 against the Big 12. That's pretty huge for UNLV. I'm really looking forward to some of the rivalry games tomorrow. I mean, I know that we got a sloppy slate in all college football. The night slot is way worse than the 2:30 and 11 a.m. slots combined. But I'm looking forward to seeing the Oregon State, whether we could see some magic from that game or if we're going to see some more magic from Pittsburgh, West Virginia. Because the one thing about Pitt is that when you got dreams, they go to die there.
Yeah, let me be clear on that, because I don't want to insult hardcore college football fans, because I'm right there with you. I'm going to love tomorrow. I'm going to enjoy tomorrow. I know that there's going to be great games. I know that somebody's going to step up and there's going to be out of pick your marginal matchup, your Maryland, Virginia game, your Boston College, Missouri game, wherever it is, that there are going to be some ridiculous finishes. There's going to be exciting plays. There's going to be great games. Absolutely. There's no Texas, Michigan. There's no LSU, USC. There's no that kind of game that is going to set the course of the college football playoff necessarily, that kind of game. But with the college football expansion being what it is with the 12 teams, and let's see, who would be the most likely college football playoff bound teams that could get tripped up tomorrow? Would that be Missouri gets tripped up by Boston College? Is that obviously if LSU loses at South Carolina, that would pretty much end their season? Sure, they could come back and win 10 straight, 9 straight to get to 10-2, but be highly unlikely. Those are the first 2 that come to mind for me.
Well, in the world of college football, anything can happen. I still don't like Georgia Kentucky being on nighttime on ABC, because I mean that does not scream Saturday night quality to me. Because like the last time Kentucky even beat Georgia was in 2009 on November 21st on ESPN2. That was a disaster. That this game's even on ABC for real. I mean that game should be sheltered down to Disney Plus. It's that bad.
So I believe the real MVP mentioned that Herb Street and Fowler are doing the game, and you keep up with this kind of stuff.
I
I
think
figured,
I think they're calling South Carolina
okay,
LSU.
that's what I was just about to say, because most people assume that they do the primetime game, and they typically do. But there are many times, as you well know, that just because they make a certain game the primetime game on ABC or ESPN doesn't mean that they are going to assign Fowler and Herb Street. And I saw that USC, meaning South Carolina, and LSU game, and I thought, I bet that's their assignment this week. Okay, very good.
Oh, it's even worse. They're gonna have Sean McDonough calling Georgia Kentucky. That's just wrong. I mean, they're gonna have him wasting his puberty voice for the second week in a row.
Love
He's not.
Sean McDonough.
What'd you say?
I love Sean McDonough.
Who doesn't? He's awesome. I mean, the great calls he's made, like the 93 World Series with Joe Carter hitting that game winner, 2015 BYU Nebraska, '09 Virginia Tech Nebraska, and they're reducing him to Georgia Kentucky. I mean, the last time Kentucky beat Georgia at Kentucky was 2006. That '06 was a pitiful, pitiful year for Georgia back then. That's just wrong. That is wrong of Disney, man. But oh well for them. They're morons. We're not.
Jackson, you speak the truth. You speak the truth. Let's not forget to join Jackson on Monday night at 6 Eastern, 5 Central. That's on the Alabama channel. And you can join Jackson talking Alabama football and the SEC every Monday. That's at 6 Eastern and 5 Central, with Alabama, of course, taking on Wisconsin. So they'll review that game. And then do we know what the SEC opener is for Bama the next week?
That's gonna be Georgia on week 5 on Saturday night on ABC.
Okay. Very nice.
So
You
we
knew
got
you
our
would know.
we got our bye week, and I'm sure we're likely going to be talking a lot about our takeaways from Alabama, Wisconsin. We'll be talking. I won't spoil too much, but we'll be giving our take on Tua's injury and where he goes from there, and we'll be talking a little bit about the possibility of the West Virginia Alabama series being taken out and possibly being replaced by some more editions of the Backyard Brawl.
Oh, okay. So we will ask the chat, because I know you know the answer. Who was the West Virginia quarterback the last time they played Alabama? That would have been in 2014, folks. So if you leave that in the chat, you got West Virginia taking on Alabama back in 2014 with Blake Sims at the controls for Bama. Who was the quarterback for West Virginia? All right, Jackson, appreciate you being here. And of course, we'll see you on Monday night.
See you Monday night, and y'all have a good one. Stay safe, stay cool, stay away from that heat.
Adam comes back with this one. Mark, in part 2, Jason, quote, made a phone call to poor Adrienne King before he decapitated her. So the thing about me is that there are very slim slices of pop culture that my knowledge is through the roof. Like if you want to lay down, I don't know, Leave It to Beaver, Andy Griffith, the Brady Bunch, more recently, like King of Queens or something like that. I've watched those shows a zillion times. I know everybody's name, every possible situation, those sorts of things. If you want to pick out certain slices of pop rock music through the ages, yes, my pop culture knowledge through the roof. But those are very slim slices of pop. Pick out certain things, especially the movie industry. Don't care about movies. I like about 50 movies all time, which when you think about it is very few, maybe yeah, I would say 50 movies that I would ever care to see again. And therefore, I've never seen these ridiculous horror movies. I hate horror movies. They don't scare me. They don't amuse me. They do nothing. They're just dumb. So yeah, I've never watched any of those. So I know more about the Friday the 13th movies from pop culture than I do from actually watching the movies, because I have not seen 1 second of any of those movies. Not 1 second. So I've just learned from them from, skits on Saturday Night Live or commercials. So I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't know Adrian King. I would have thought that maybe this is Sean King's brother who played on special teams for Tulane or something, or De'Ara King's daughter. Who knows? That would have been my guess right there. Before we take our call from Michael here, we've got this coming in from Waxman. Let's talk about how Al Bundy was the best running back ever. There you go. 4 touchdowns in 1 game. That I can give you. Thank you. I've watched way too much Married with Children in my day. And I'm not proud of that. You talk about a waste of time, but still hilarious. Michael, what's going on tonight?
Hey, Mark, the quarterback with Clinton Trickett.
Thank you. Well done, sir. Did you have to look that up?
No, actually, I didn't.
Good for you.
But, Mark, I got to say, you ripped my heart out a few minutes ago.
Uh-oh.
Yes, my life is worthless now.
Worthless?
Yeah.
Why?
Because how many years have I been trying to get a Purdue show?
I don't know. I've not kept a calendar and been marking off the dates.
Yeah, I've been trying to do something like that. And then congrats to Jeffrey, by the way.
Michael, you give me a call and we'll discuss it there.
Okay. Like that. No, I'm happy for Jeffrey and stuff like that. But I gotta say, that was a great game. From what I've seen tonight, that was a gutsy last 4 minutes for UNLV, by the way. When they scored to win the game.
Yeah, I may have to get off here very soon and watch the end of that game, because I don't know what you're talking about, other than I tried to take in like the last minute right before I came on.
Oh, sorry. I thought you watched the game tonight, but I digress. But anyway.
No, that's okay. That's what I'm paid to do. That's why I'm supposed to be here talking to all of you. You guys assume that I watch the games, especially when there were only 2 tonight. But I was out with some friends, and I came home later, and I just caught up with the Kansas State Arizona second half. But I did not really pay too much attention to the other game until that I saw that it was a dramatic ending, or at least a close finish, and then I tried to catch up with it.
Well, going out with friends trumps college football anyway, because how often you get to do, you never know when you might be able to be last time with your friends and stuff like that. But anyway, glad you had a good time with your friends. But who won the Arizona K-State game tonight?
Who won the game?
Yeah.
Oh, Kansas State blew them out 31-7.
Oh, wow. Not bad. Like, hey, I got to ask you this. Is Kansas on the level of Florida State now, where they're pretty much DOA for the rest of the year?
No, they play in the Big 12, and Florida State's lost 2 conference games, and Kansas has lost 2 non-conference games.
Okay. So I guess there's still a little bit of support left, but not much. But
no. Hang on just a second. It depends on how you interpret that. If you're looking at those 2 losses and thinking, okay, well, this is the team we're going to get all season, of course, they're going to lose games in the Big 12 as well. But understand that they only lost these games and came within 1 play of winning both of those games, and neither one of them count in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
They have a clean slate, just like Arizona does. That was not a conference game for the Wildcats. Now, that doesn't look good. They obviously got blown out, and they're going to have to get much better to compete. I believe that Kansas State's the best team in the conference.
Okay. Then I guess you would have Oklahoma State too then?
Well, so I followed up your Cam Rising comment from earlier today, or I believe that was last night or earlier today.
Earlier today.
Yeah, so he hurt his hand. Yeah, I don't know how long he's going to be out. They should be fine against Utah State, and they've got a rather light conference schedule, but still they're turning to a freshman quarterback. And I picked Kansas State to win the Big 12, so I'm feeling rather confident there. They've beaten 2 good teams.
Mm-hmm. Not bad. So I guess you would consider Tulane a good team then?
Yes.
So I'm trying to think. Is that the American or is that Conference USA for Tulane?
American.
Okay. Just wondering and stuff like that. 'Cause I can't remember so many conferences and stuff like that. It's hard to remember.
They used to be in Conference USA.
Okay. Not bad. So I was just wondering stuff like that. No, I'm trying to think who Boston College got tomorrow.
Missouri.
Do you think that might be a good game with
Yeah.
I can't remember the quarterback's name for Boston College. Melindy?
Silianos.
Castellanos, that's who it was.
Castellanos. Thank you. Who am I thinking of? I'm thinking of I mixed him up with the Iowa tight end, Silianos. Castellanos. Yeah. Thank you. Stephen Castellanos.
Yeah, but do you think for them to have a shot against Missouri, they're going to have to do like they did with against Florida State, just run the ball and get 200 yards on the ground? Because I haven't seen Missouri play this year, so I don't know.
So I think you've got something there because Missouri, a lot of people are high on Missouri, but I would say let's pump the brakes just a bit because even though Brady Cook's back and their weapons, including Luther Burden, are back on offense, they got gutted on defense, and a lot of those guys are NFL players. And so Boston College could win that kind of game that you are just talking about right there, where Castellanos runs for 150 yards and they keep the ball out of Brady Cook's hands and they win 23-17.
Mm-hmm. And I can't remember who the running back was. I think he had 100 yards against Florida State too.
Cody Schrader.
Okay.
Oh, you're talking about Boston College running back. Yeah.
Schrader. Okay.
Trayshawn Ward.
Okay, thanks. All right, I got to ask you this. What's the better chance of happening tomorrow? Purdue beat Notre Dame or Memphis is just running roughshod against Florida State?
Well, running roughshod or just winning the game?
From what I've seen against Florida State, I wouldn't be surprised if Memphis went by at least 14, if not more.
Okay, well, it's more likely that Purdue's going to just flat out win the game than Memphis is going to win by more than 14 points. But if you're just asking me who's more likely to win the game, it's a toss-up. It's very close. I'm going to go with Memphis.
Mm-hmm. Like I was just saying. That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure. That game's down in Florida State, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
All right. But no, another one, you guys keep talking about the calls with Sean McDonough. Another one I will never forget was the block punt with Michigan State.
Yes.
Yeah, because he called that game and stuff like that too. But no, like
technically not a blocked punt, but
or bad snap.
We know what you mean. We know what you mean. Yeah.
Good
call. Good call by you, Michael. Absolutely. That was a game that cost Ohio State going to the playoff.
Mm-hmm. And like that, I think Georgia, Kentucky, I don't even have a chance. I'm Dario. I like you, but I'm sorry, I don't think it can happen. And I don't know why that's not on Disney Plus too. But no, who's South Carolina got tomorrow?
LSU at home.
Ooh, good game, you think, or do you think LSU? Well, without what's his name from LSU blew his knee out for the second year in a row.
John Emery.
Do you think they might have trouble?
Yeah, I think they could have trouble. LSU's or South Carolina's at home, though. They played excellent defense last week. But, yeah, I'm going to have to see it twice from South Carolina to believe it because they did almost lose to Old Dominion the week before. They only won that game by 4 points.
Mm-hmm.
And so one game against Kentucky on the road when Kentucky is 2-8 in the SEC at home the last 10 games is not proving to me that South Carolina is that good.
Okay. And do you think Bama runs rough shot against Wisconsin tomorrow?
Well, I hate to give away all my predictions since they're, of course, here on the Voice of College Football on Patreon or as a YouTube premium member, everyone. You get my picks, you get Steve Dace, you get Matt Zemek, and you get the Steve Merrill under the radar selection 23-5 against the spread. But I will say that, yes, that's a great possibility.
Yeah, I'm just saying that because unfortunately I'm not blessed enough to get to Patreon and the other stuff like that. But hopefully soon, knock on wood, that I'll be able to get it done soon. But I'm just going through a rough stretch right now. So hopefully by the end of this, by the October, I'll be able to get that done and stuff. So,
well, that's why we provide plenty right here. More videos than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Not bad. All right. I'm sure you got other callers and stuff. Mark, thanks for letting me spill my 2 cents and surgically repairing my heart and stuff like that. But no, like I said, I'm happy for Jeffrey and stuff like that. He deserves it, and he's a great guy and stuff like that.
I appreciate it, Michael. Thank you.
I will get in touch with you soon. Take care.
All right, have a good night.
See ya.
All right. So Adam met Jerry Mathers. I don't know what I would say to Jerry Mathers, just because he seems like an extremely awkward individual and always has been. Like he seems to be the same person he is on camera, playing the role of the Beaver, as he is just normally. So those type of individuals tend to make me, I don't want to say awkward or nervous. I just feel bad for them. But got to meet Jerry Mathers. Very nice. Very nice. Tony Dow just passed away maybe in the last year, 2 years, something like that. Sean Garner, my heart is weary. My back is getting tight. Okay, that must be another movie reference that I'm not aware of. My heart is weary. My back is getting tight. It's not in quotes, but we'll take your $2, Sean, or YouTube will take 30% of that, or 40, whatever the number is. And thank you for the contribution. You can typically catch Sean on our College Football After Dark panel show that we run every Sunday night here at the Voice of College Football. So if you're a member of the YouTube community or Patreon, take your pick. And the reason we have both, if you were ever wondering, well, why do we have both Patreon and YouTube memberships, is that Patreon came out way ahead of YouTube. So we didn't know that YouTube would have a membership program. So we had already established Patreon with about 100 people over there. And then YouTube started memberships, and I didn't want to risk losing the Patreon folks, but of course needed to take advantage of what YouTube was offering. So we have done our best to align the two and make them even in regards to the benefits and the commitment for you each month. All right. Something tells me we're going to come through with more movie references that I'm not going to know. We have Matthew Miller. This is starting to remind me of there used to be a guy that would call our West Virginia show in particular. And it didn't take me long to figure out his game. And I'm not saying you guys are doing it, because everybody that's commenting in the super chat are first rate, hardcore, our base, our foundation here at the Voice of College Football, people like Sean and Matthew and Adam, etc. But this guy, it was very easy to figure out his game, which was, I'm going to dominate the conversation by just sending $1.99 super chats, that I can spend the least amount of money and I can dominate the conversation. And he used to just spit out $1.99 super chats until I said, okay, no more. Because they weren't reasonable. They weren't about college football. They were just trolling. He wanted to troll and do it for the cheapest amount of money possible. And he got away with it for about 6 or 7 of them. And then I caught on to his game. I don't remember who that was. I don't remember what his handle was. Yeah, you guys are way ahead of me on this. Again, my slices of pop culture references is very specific. I'm the type person that even though I don't come across as being obsessive, I'm not compulsive. That's for sure. When it comes to purchases and other things like that, I'm not compulsive. Obsessive, yes, because what I like, I like. That's one of the reasons I'm a encyclopedia, or at least I used to be with college football and used to be with the NFL and Major League Baseball, because I'm obsessive. And other things that interest me. But if things don't interest me, then I completely shut them off, don't care, don't want to hear about it. So with Matthew, we've got Mark. Large Marge sent me. Wah ha 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 ha. Large Marge, see? Don't know. Have no idea. Don't know where we're going. And then we've got Sean coming back with, hello. Michael Hogue, always nice to hear from you. So now we're passing on notes through the super chat to each other, which is fine by me. Thank you, Sean. Appreciate you. We have representation from Texas, Ohio State, and Georgia tonight in the super chats. We have as well, Sean coming back with this one. It's a King of Queens reference. Really? Is that a Arthur reference? Let me go back to this. Let me go back. Okay. It may just be the way I read it. Large Marge. Yeah, see, I'm missing that. And I got to tell you, when King of Queens was on the first run, I don't think I watched it much at all. And that's usually my style, that I don't pick up on these shows immediately. And so it was in syndication that I picked up on it. And I would say at a time when you guys were watching me all the time, when we were at the zenith of the voice of college football, which we're coming up on our next zenith, but our previous zenith, 2020, 2021, there was a block of King of Queens on every night on TV Land. And since I'm an old school cable kind of guy, and I'm trying to get away from that, that gets locked in on I get locked in on certain habits of TV viewing that it seemed like forever, 5 years, I would just have the King of Queens on every night from 10 p.m. until 2 in the morning. Just all 8 episodes would just run. I would watch them. I loved them, even though I saw them like 3 months earlier. Just let them run, just absorbed it over and over and over and over. I was out with some friends tonight and a King of Queens episode came up. But I don't, Large Marge, yeah, I would need a character, I guess. I would need something there, but thank you for the reference there. Waxman says, Mark, want to call in, but don't know how much love. My apologies on that. So few things there. Number one would be, some of you remember when we first started taking calls here at the Voice of College Football, we would take them on my iPhone. And I set up a number and we would just take calls. And I would set the actual phone down by the speaker. And it worked well enough. Was it professional? No. People can't believe I worked at ESPN and my production skills are zero. But a lot of that has to do, of course, with finances. But so we did that forever. And then we actually got a phone line because somebody stepped up and said, Mark, we're going to take care of your phone line. We're going to set it up and we're going to pay for it each month. And that cost like $15 per show. And that didn't even include how much the phone line cost. Whatever that was, I don't even know. I never saw the bill, but I saw that the balance went down $15 every show, roughly. And so we were doing 5, 6, 7. Shoot, I do 16 shows a week now on all the team channels. And so obviously we don't have the budget for that. We do have a call-in show on the USC channel that we take care of the call-in system over there, but I just don't have it set it up. I've got like a $900 audio board sitting under this table right here, and I don't use it. So actually, Waxman, that's my issue. It was my goal this off season that after I moved, that I would set up my studio the way I wanted, which also meant, see that camera right there? I should be using that camera. But to do that, I got to tear everything apart and reset it up. And my picture would look so much better with like a $2,300 camera instead of a laptop webcam shooting me. So that needs to be done. Also, this audio board, again, spend $1,000 on an audio board. We got to put that into use again. And it was for a long time. And we used to be able to give you a phone number in addition to the StreamYard. And you guys may remember this. This is what else happened. Now it's coming back to me, is that we used to have the phone line, the traditional phone line. And then we had some type of a short. And I bought new connections. And for whatever reason, that short could not be detected, even though I wasted money in trying to solve it. And so in the meantime, while we were having issues with the call-in line, we went to StreamYard. I thought, well, we can just bring in people via StreamYard, just like I do guests. And you guys all loved it. You said, we can hear people better. We can see them now. So I just thought, well, we'll just go with StreamYard. I do know that our goal here, even though we love calls from Jackson and Jeffrey, which I'm going to let you know in front of everyone that you guys should be the last people calling because you've got shows. We need to prioritize other callers, but we had nobody else calling tonight for the most part. We do want to give you the option of calling not just through StreamYard, but the traditional way. And we used to get so many more calls, and we used to get calls from a more varied selection of people, which I think we're going to do that for maybe a week, or maybe one day a week. We're going to go where we just take calls from first timers or people that have not called for a long time. We don't want to talk to the same people every night, even though, hey, the real MVP and everybody that calls all the time, I love that you call all the time, but we need to build our show, of course. So we need to take calls. It's not your issue. We just need more people and different people calling all the time. So people like Waxman. So thank you so much for the contribution. We appreciate that, sir. Midwest Picker, will Ole Miss cover 23 points at Wake? Might rain. Well, I wish I knew that. You can get my predictions on Patreon over. Yes, I did select that game. Yeah, it's a top 25 game. So that is in my selections. I picked 23 games this week. So those selections, both money line and against the spread, are on Patreon and also right here on YouTube as a premium member. So Midwest Picker, for as much as I would like to tell you what my prediction was on that game, I would be doing a disservice to the folks that are supporting those predictions. So you got to respect my loyalty to them because they have been loyal to me. So yeah, check out our predictions, and it is well worth the financial investment. If you're into that sort of thing, if you're not, if you just love college football, then you're in the right place. So you don't miss anything by just being here and getting everything for free, because we produce more live streams and more videos than anybody in college football. And we may have run the course here. What else is going on out there? John had a long week. It's good to know that John is safe and sound and has had a trip. I don't know how the move went, but hopefully everything went well. And what else here? Michael, Voice of College Football. When you do that, I don't know what that is. You have to bring back your trademark statement back when you do that. Trademark statement. Well, I had a trademark statement. The first one I guess I ever had in my career was in Mississippi, when I used to say, good morning, everyone. This is your first look at sports. And then after that, I don't know. I know that I used to welcome people that I see for the first time. Do we have anyone new in the chat? Is there anyone new in the chat? I do not believe so. I don't see anyone in the chat that we've never seen. Here's one. Colby Covers. I remember when Mark had hair. Acura days. Acura. You lost me on the Acura. People are making so many references tonight that I am clueless on. Acura. When I had hair. Well, fortunately, and maybe I shouldn't say this because there might be a day coming when I won't be able to do this, but it will grow back. It still grows. So I got to trim back there pretty tight this time around because I'm in this 90-degree heat every day. And I just figured I hate to go to the barber. That's not a fun trip. There's nothing wrong with it. I always get done and I think, well, that was simple. That was easy. But I just don't like doing it. But the accurate days. So Colby makes it obvious here that he's been a longtime viewer. However, before I read that statement, I was going to point out that Colby must be a first time, but he's got the wrench. What am I missing here? Did you change your handle? Possibly. That might be it. Uncle Rico. Mark, get on it. I don't know what that is. That might be for the phone line. Yeah, I know. It's bad. That was my goal this off season, and I got the monitor, but now we have laptop issues, so the monitor is doing me no good. Got the monitor. I got a new shelf. Put together a new shelf. I got LED lights that I'm not using tonight. Let's turn those on. There we go. I got a new light here. I got that. What do we call that? That's a oh shoot, what's that called? That's a box light. Yeah, so we got that. Yeah, we were just talking today, myself and our operations manager, just talking today about all the operational and technical upgrades that we need here at the Voice of College Football. Yeah. Oh, more the camera. How many of you people watch me or watch any of the shows on a big screen? Because I bet this looks awful on a big screen. And I would hate to see that. I would hate to see how bad our presentation is on a big screen. So we are upgrading all the time. Look at our Twitter. Look how much nicer it is than it was just a few months ago. So we are getting to everything eventually. We are. John usually watches on the big screen. So be honest, maybe not publicly, John. You can tell me behind the scenes how bad we look on the big screen, but I'm sure it depends on the host and their camera abilities. Cheryl does not own a TV. You're a smart individual, Cheryl. I am going to attempt to do something that I've heard about more and more recently, and that's putting away devices for 1 day a week. It's kind of difficult to do that. Like I can't put my phone down for the entire day because I've got too many business contacts and issues that need to be resolved, but I can stay off social media 1 day a week. I can do that. And I will do that because I need that 24 hours away from that. Here we go. Here's a text right now from our guy, TJ, on the Michigan channel. So I texted him that I posted this stat that you see. Well, that's Jackson's stat right there. See this stat right here? There it is. Yeah, I posted this one. That the group of five in the FCS are now 3-78 against the Power Five, and UNLV owns 2 of those wins, Houston and Kansas. So I sent this to TJ, and he writes me back, how did you find this stat? How did I find this stat? Huh? That was my point in sending that to you. This is where I found that stat. I'm the voice of college football. I've got stats like this running in my brain. I don't look up stats. Not that I don't look up stats, but I make up stuff like this all the time. This is how my brain works. Waxman says, do it, Mark. It's for your health. Take a walk. Enjoy life. Well, hopefully it looks like I've taken a walk or two because don't worry about that. I try to get my exercise. I don't exercise as much as I should. Now, see this baby right here? Yeah, this was the first ever weightlifting accident I ever had. Yeah, I blew out my, what is that? Pec and bicep just about ruptured the other day. It was painful. I was sitting here talking to all of you for a couple nights in pain. It was throbbing, aching. Yeah, that looks like something dropped on me or I burned myself. No, that is, and that wrapped all the way into my chest. That was a weightlifting issue. Yeah, I just popped. I felt it rip. Well, it obviously didn't rip because it's healing. I don't need medical attention. It's like I can now lift my arm about that high, and this one goes way up. It goes to about right there. But that day I couldn't do that. So thank you for that, everyone. I didn't mean to gross you out. I don't know why I brought that up. What were we talking about? Somebody said something that led me into that. Oh, taking a walk, getting some exercise. So I do prioritize my exercise most of the time. Not like my buddy. My best buddy who's down here in Florida, that guy is a maniac when it comes to fitness and nutrition beyond anything I've ever seen, aside from like a professional. It's ridiculous. But man, yeah, that's the first time I've lifted weights for a long, long time because I'm old, but I've not lifted heavy weights for a long time. And I was throwing up about 225, and I had done we were doing supersets, and I had already done about 5 sets. I think this was my 6th set, and it was, I just kind of exploded, and I let it go too deep, and it just, whoo, yeah. So we're going to, no, Sean, that was not doing curls, that was benching. So I'm letting this rest for a good month because I still can't even, I don't have range of, like, it's sore right there. I can't go like that. I can only go to like that. So it needs to heal. This is what we're talking about at 1:18 a.m. Eastern. I guess that's my fault. But we only had 2 football games tonight, and I think we covered them rather well. And I think you get a pretty good feel for the games. I am going to prioritize this Saturday. Let's get to it. Here we go. These are my games. As you guys probably know at this point, I'm going to prioritize 2 games at each television window. And we're going to go through these games, and I'll let you know what I'm watching, and therefore what you can expect from instant analysis out of me. And then, of course, if somebody goes off the rails and it becomes 28-0 in the first quarter, then I'll move on to another game. But at noon Eastern time, got to watch Alabama, Wisconsin, even though it may not be a great game. This could be this week's version of Texas, Michigan. May not be a great game, but because of the name brands, I've got to watch that game first and foremost until it gets out of hand. If it does, I'm going to go with Alabama, Wisconsin. That gets most of my attention. And then number 2 goes to LSU, South Carolina. Now, if one of those games goes off the rails, my next thought is to go to Florida State, Memphis. That is going to be next. Those are really the 3 games: Alabama, Wisconsin, LSU, South Carolina. Those are the 2 games I'm watching. And then we will put Memphis, Florida State on deck. Okay, 3:30. And then, of course, the SEC network's got to muck everything up and kick off at 12:45 with BC, Missouri. I actually think that could be an under-the-radar kind of sneaky good game. At 3:30, I'm going to watch the Civil War, and I'm going to watch Notre Dame, Purdue. But this is a difficult call. There's about, I think I counted 6 games I would like to see at 3:30. So this is going to be a tough call for me. I'm going to be annoyed in that I can't watch all the games I want to see. But I'm going to go with Oregon, Oregon State, and Notre Dame, Purdue. Although I think Tulane is going to give OU fits. Texas A&M, Florida, name brands, not good teams, but name brands, and I get attracted by the name brands, and I know better. This game really doesn't matter, but it's Texas A&M and Florida. Also, I love, of course, the Apple Cup and West Virginia Pitt. So that's a lot of good football right there. No great football, no dominant matchups, but a lot of good matchups. That 3:30 window, that is the prime window this weekend. And then we go to prime time. I don't see anything in particular that's sneaky good at all. No, not at all. And we've got some odd broadcast times, as we always do. Utah State at 4:30 on CBS Sportsnet. UConn Duke on something called ACC Extra. And Virginia Tech trying to avoid an upset against Old Dominion. Remember what happened a few years ago against the Hokies, and also that Old Dominion almost upset South Carolina. All right, let's go to primetime with Ole Miss probably going to bludgeon Wake. That's on the CW, which now that I've moved, I don't know where the CW is. I'm sure I could find it, but I don't think I'm going to need to find it this week. We go to primetime, and I guess I've got to watch Georgia and Kentucky. Georgia's becoming like the Chicago Bulls or the New York Yankees, or where you hate watching them to a certain extent because it's boring. But I mean, back in their heyday, of course, the Bulls and the Yankees. But at the same time, you've got to admire greatness. So a lot of people like to tune in to watch Georgia just be athletically dominant. And this game is going to be, I will give you one score prediction tonight. I'm going to go I'm going to go 42. I'm going to go 42-13. 42-13 Georgia. Nebraska could get a scare. Don't be surprised. Okay, in prime time, I'm watching Georgia, Kentucky until it's 28-0 in the first quarter. And my second screen is going to be on for me, it's a toss-up between Indiana, UCLA, UCF, TCU, and Maryland, Virginia. I don't know which way I'm going to go. I think just because of the novelty of it, I'm going to go with Indiana playing out at the Rose Bowl. That's going to be my second game. And then when Georgia's blasting Kentucky by 1,000,000 points, I think I'll go with UCF and TCU, although I like this non-conference matchup down here with Maryland and Virginia. Of course, the Terps won last year 42-14. And that takes us to late night. And usually, although I love getting on here after the primetime games and mixing it up with all of you, I am a bit hurt by missing the excellent late night games. Like last weekend, it was Oregon, Boise State, for example. There's usually about 3 games late night that I think, man, I'm missing these games while we're talking, and I'm trying to keep track of them while I'm talking to all of you. However, this weekend, don't care. If I had nothing to do and we didn't have this show, I would sit and watch probably San Diego State, Cal, and have another game on. I'd watch those games. Absolutely. I would stay up until whatever it took, but I'm not going to miss those games. That has got to be the worst slate of West Coast games, late night, the entire season. There is nothing there. What's ESPN showing? San Diego State at Cal. ESPN is going to get their worst late night rating the entire season right there on Saturday night. Then something called True Max is showing New Mexico State and Fresno State. CBS Sportsnet special. Yeah, garbage at late at night is awful. Awful. Right, folks. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. And we'll be back for instant analysis after all the big games starting at noon. So expect about 3:30, 4 p.m. Eastern time to dive into our instant analysis. And that's most likely going to be on the Alabama-Wisconsin game and LSU South Carolina, unless something else jumps up. We'll be back here after the primetime games at roughly 11:30 Eastern time on Saturday night. Thank you so much for your support. Appreciate you being here. Had a fun time talking up college football, the King of Queens, and Jason, and all of that. Cheryl, you get some rest too. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Appreciate you being here. Do I look tired? I don't feel tired. I feel like knocking down a couple dozen Oreos right now. Actually, I did that before I came on. I knocked down a good dozen or 15 after I went and got an excellent steak tonight, by the way. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here. The voice of college football. We'll see you late night on Saturday. Enjoy the football. College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the voice of college football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, showstopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the voice of college football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.